This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, the ICC has ordered a rehearing in the IRTLP. What does that mean to you? And that checkerboard pattern you see in the farm field isn't your imagination. More on one of the most chaotic harvest seasons that I can remember. That and more this week on the Four Rivers Ag Report. The Four Rivers Ag Report is underwritten in part by
the Department of Geology-Geography is a proud sponsor of the Four Rivers Ag Report and provides integrative learning opportunities for students and the community to explore the physical and cultural world near and far.
Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Now, whether or not you think the government shutdown was a good idea, one of the results of that shutdown is that we're really missing the USDA's weekly crop reports. We know that the harvest is going on, we just don't know how it's going. Well, Reuters and others have been trying to cobble together information. They are reporting that nationwide, corn is about 31% done and beans are about 45% complete. And statewide, according to the South Street News and the Illinois Farm Bureau, Central Illinois' corn harvest is about 37% complete and the soybeans about 55%. Yields, however, remain shrouded in mystery, and farmers I've talked to have told me yields all over the map. But some ag sites are reporting up to, and now get this, 260 bushels per acre. I can only hope your yield's that good. I doubt it, but here's hoping. And since finding farmers to stop the combine long enough to talk to me is hard this week, we opted to explore some other topics we've been following for a while. Now, last August, the Illinois Commerce Commission approved the plans for the Illinois River Transmission Line project. And as we thought, almost immediately calls for a rehearing began. Farmers, many in our area, but also all over the state, protested many of the ways the project had progressed so far. Well, last week the ICC reviewed many of those complaints and declared a rehearing, not on just one portion of the line, but the entire line. What does that mean for farmers and landowners? Well, a couple days ago, I was able to talk to Laura Harmon. She's the senior counsel for the Illinois Agricultural Association about where the project stands and what you need to do to protect your rights. And with me now is Laura Harmon. She's a senior counsel for the Illinois Agricultural Association, and she's the point person for the Illinois Farm Bureau on this power line issue that we're talking about today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Laura.
Thank you.
Recently, the ICC has allowed a rehearing on much of the on sections of this Illinois River Transmission Line project. What's happened here?
On August 20th, the commission entered an order in the case. And when they entered an order in the case, they didn't grant approval for Ameren to construct the entire route. So there was a gap in the line between Pawnee to Pana to Mount Zion, and then Mount Zion to the Piatt County border. In addition, so what happened was Ameren filed a petition for rehearing, as well as several other groups of landowner interveners, farmers that had intervened in the case, most of them along segments of the route. They got together, formed groups, and intervened. So several of those intervener groups filed petitions for rehearing as well. The ICC on October 2nd finally ruled on whether to grant or deny those petitions for rehearing, and they granted most of the petitions for rehearing. So what we have now at present is the line is up on rehearing between Meridosha, Illinois, to Kansas, Illinois.
So basically the entire width of the state, correct?
Exactly. There were two segments from Meridosha to Ipava, and then one in Champaign County that were sort of offshoots. Those segments are not up on rehearing. No one filed for rehearing on those. But in addition to the segments that are on rehearing, the ICC did not approve all of the substations that Ameren wanted to construct. So many of the substations, including the location of those substations, those are up on rehearing as well. So several of those are up on rehearing. So right now we've got 150 days to rehear the case. I don't know what the schedule is going to be on rehearing. We're waiting for the ICC to schedule a pre-hearing or a status conference in the case, so the parties can sit down and come up with a schedule on rehearing.
Now, one of the complaints I kept on hearing when I was talking to people concerned about this was the lack of transparency, the lack of clear communication between the designers, landowners. The websites were wrong, maps weren't posted, folks were told they didn't need to be concerned about this hearing because it's going in a different direction. What's been done to address some of those issues?
Well, what you're describing are a lot of the complaints that were raised in the case that have to do with the expedited review process itself. Ameren chose to file this particular project. It's a 380-mile project under expedited review. In general, those statutes are utilized for shorter lines. So in this case, you've got a project that should take years to determine whether, where it should be built and whether it should be built. So the ICC and the parties didn't get to go through the normal process and rounds of discovery and refining of the routes that normally occurs during the hearing process itself. So, those issues, they may be addressed either on appeal or through the legislative process, but those were the concerns that have been raised by the farmers and interveners in this case from the beginning when it was filed. And then with respect to the meetings, I think you're talking about the meetings that were held prior to the filing of the case. Under the statute, any company that wants to file a transmission line under expedited review has to have a series of public houses and open meetings. And that did take place here. They had 3 rounds of meetings throughout the state and several counties. And during the first 2 series of meetings, there was a general map with a study area. The actual segments of the route, or the primary and the alternate route, those weren't identified until the last public meeting, which was shortly before the company filed the petition with the ICC. So, and as part of the process, what routinely happens is that the administrative law judges that hear the case request that the interveners suggest alternate routes. So, thinking is that, they don't want you to come to the ICC and just say, not in my backyard.
I don't want it. They want you to say, here's a better way.
That's correct. So, because no one wants it.
Yeah, of course, no one wants it. So, where are we at in the process? Are landowners being contacted by representatives for Ameren, or what's going on?
Landowners are being contacted by Ameren. Ameren didn't seek eminent domain, so they do not have eminent domain authority. It's our understanding that for those segments of the route that are subject to the rehearing, Ameren has backed off seeking easements for those segments that are going to be up on rehearing, that are part of the rehearing process. But if you are on a segment where either you were represented by counsel and counsel sought rehearing and it was denied, the time period for filing a appeal has not run yet. So, I would, if you're in that situation, and again, there was a group on the very first segment of the route that filed a petition for rehearing Adams County. It was denied. However, they still have time to file a notice of appeal before the appellate court. In addition, there was another group of landowners in Edgar County that filed a petition for rehearing, which was not granted. So you definitely should consult an attorney or your counsel if you do receive a letter from Ameren. As of today, we were just made aware of the fact that they are sending out letters seeking the right to survey under the statute, and if you don't give them access, that they are going to come on and survey anyway.
So they're going to survey whether or not you give them permission, they're saying.
That's correct. There's a section in the Public Utilities Act that allows them to do that. However, council have pointed out some issues with that section, so we're advising farmers to seek counsel. If you do get a letter from Ameren and you are on a segment where it is not subject to rehearing, nor did any party file for rehearing on that particular segment. In addition, the location of the substations may impact, at least with respect to those properties that are next to a substation, may impact the routing along those segments. So that's not quite settled yet. So, our advice at this point is to as it has been from the beginning, to seek counsel. They are in the process for those segments that were not subject to rehearing. They're trying to obtain easements and offering more compensation if you sign before a certain date. So for those people, definitely need to contact counsel. We do have names of attorneys that can represent farmers in easement negotiations, and a lot of them have worked on the case itself and are familiar with it.
One last question. Is it better for a farmer or landowner to band with similar concerned citizens in their area with the council, or is it better to go solo and make sure your particular interests are protected?
Well, in general, I think that, from what we've heard, farmers are getting better results by going together as a group. But in addition, even if you join a group, you need
to protect your own interests, correct?
That's correct, and an attorney should be able to protect each individual's interests, as part of a group. So, as long as your group is you're in a similar situation, there shouldn't be a conflict. But that certainly would be something for the attorney to determine whether or not there's a conflict, and if there isn't. Finding it in general, farmers are getting better results. I think, by hiring counsel that have dealt with the company before, have represented farmers in negotiating transmission line easements in particular. Many of the attorneys that are representing farmers across the state have represented farmers in negotiations with Ameren on prior projects. So they do have a track record with the company and farmers, and know the issues. There are many issues that need to be addressed in the easement, not just compensation issues, but this is a permanent fixture on your property. You've got to farm around it. You've got to live with it. So does the next generation, and so on. So you want to make sure that farmers negotiate good terms and terms that are protective of their right to farm.
Okay. Well, Laura Harmon, Senior Counsel for the Illinois Ag Association, thank you so much for helping make this very murky situation slightly less murky.
Thank you.
Casey Berry is here with Harvest News, a new farm bill, and a win in the battle with the Asian carp. Casey?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Casey Berry with a look at your farm news for this week. Corn prices continue to fall and are at the lowest level since late August of 2010. The most recent price reflects both supply and demand considerations. As far as supply, there's still some uncertainty about how much corn has been harvested. And on the demand side, there's been a leaked report of an apparent EPA proposal to reduce the biofuels mandates, including ethanol. A possible reduction in the biofuels mandates has generally been seen as a drag on corn demand. However, U of I ag economists say a larger view suggests that corn demand and therefore prices in 2014 might be largely unaffected by a reduction. And talking supply side, harvest is in full swing, and farmers say so far things are going well. While harvest progress estimates haven't been available from the USDA because of the partial shutdown of the federal government, yield reports so far suggest farmers could harvest an above average corn crop and at least an average soybean crop. USDA said last month the corn crop production should show a record 13.8 billion bushels of corn and 3.15 billion bushels of beans. Local farmers say their farm yields are much better than last year, but bean yields are averaging a little less because of the lack of rain in August. The drought really hasn't let up across the East-Southeast district. Coles County is still sitting in abnormally dry conditions, and the severe drought seems to have stopped in its tracks. But if we don't get more rain, that drought may continue. Although now's probably not the best time to get rain since farmers are in the fields trying to get those crops out. And the rush to harvest is now even more important than usual. Poor stalk health from the drought conditions are forcing farmers to choose which fields need to come out faster. The drought during the grain fill period caused a lot of the crop to basically eat itself because it was pulling carbohydrate reserves from the stalk to meet the needs of the developing grain. That also makes for puny stalks. So what we are seeing is farmers working to get their weakest fields out first so they don't fall over before they can be harvested. Part of prioritizing the least healthy fields for earliest harvest also means growers might not want to wait until grain dries down to 18%, which is the desired moisture percentage for harvest. It's been a while since we've talked Farm Bill, but there has been some movement, and a local politician is right in the middle of it. U.S. Representative Rodney Davis from Taylorville, Illinois, was named one of 29 House Farm Bill conferees. Officials are set to negotiate differences in each chamber's bill. Both the Senate and House must pass the final version before it sees the president's desk for signature. A one-year extension of the 2008 Farm Bill expired September 30th, and farm programs will revert to permanent laws from the late 1930s and 1940s if a solution is not reached by January 1st of 2014. An immigration fight that we really hope to win is against the Asian carp, and there's some good news on that front. Illinois has been making progress against Asian carp, keeping the invasive species out of Lake Michigan and reducing numbers downstream. The state's progress can be marked by shifting a 3-year focus downstream from Lake Michigan to just below the electric barrier near the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. The state's shipping and fishing industries are threatened unless efforts successfully stop the carp from reaching Lake Michigan. Asian carp have really big appetites and compete with native species for food. The fish also jolt out of water when frightened by the sound of motors, and some fishermen have even been injured by leaping fish. Well, that's all for this week. Remember to stay safe this harvest season. Until next time, I'm Casey Berry.
So what do you do when you don't have any facts to talk about? Well, you talk about big ideas and just let the conversation flow. And that's exactly what I did the other day with Chris Langen for this week's On the Map. On this week's On the Map segment, without any government data, Chris and I have kind of striking out on interesting things to talk about. And so we were doing some navel gazing, and Chris mentioned to me some concept about resource allocation called the Buffalo Commons. What's that about?
Yeah, back in the mid-1980s, a geographer from Rutgers at the time threw out this idea of re-envisioning or imagining how we should change how we use the lands in the Great Plains.
Okay.
And her idea was to basically empty out the Great Plains and turn it back into a Buffalo Commons, turn it back into more or less a nature preserve because the land wasn't really good for any other kind of use.
So you're talking about land that's now being used for corn and wheat and that sort of things, the Nebraskas, the Wyomings, that's there, North Dakotas.
Exactly.
and reverting it back to just plains?
Yeah, just emptying it out and making it a common area for the entire country to go and enjoy and to recreate in and things like that.
Now, what was her rationale for doing that?
Basically
Or just suggesting it?
Yeah. And it didn't make everyone very happy.
I was going to say.
Crop failures, the Dust Bowl area, economic collapses, booms and bust cycles that had happened over the years, and just overall depopulation of the region for extended periods of time. So why not just move everyone out, compensate them somewhat for it, and then open this area up to the public?
Okay, we're talking very big picture.
Big, yes.
And agricultural interests it's never going to happen, folks. But we're just talking big picture here. We move them out, not a big deal. Hundreds of thousands of people, they're not talking millions.
No.
What would that do for the nation as a whole then with that land?
It would open it up for access for things like recreation. And what it would really do ecologically is to stop some of the degradation that had been happening there.
Degradation in what way?
Pumping ground out of things like the Ogallala Aquifer, pumping water out, soil loss, the Dust Bowl is kind of the prime example of that. So just turning it back to some ecologically friendly use.
Now, this is really an example of rethinking everything.
Yes.
Going back to square one.
Yes.
What sort of, when thinking about the way we produce crops now, what other big picture items can we kick around? We don't have to accept them, but kick them around.
With a whole lot of caveats in front of this idea, just try to reimagine what would Illinois look like 100 years ago, its agricultural landscape. What if we got rid of all of the corn and soybeans and planted foods that we could actually physically eat as they are?
Right.
Put livestock back into these ecosystems.
Now, we grow corn for the livestock, don't we?
We did. Historically, not quite as much.
Okay.
But then again, it takes longer for them to fatten up, which makes it cost more for us at the grocery store. So this is all very much interconnected.
Right. Now, so it'd be a different way of doing everything.
It would be.
Now, last time we did the story about the population boom, 9 billion people and counting. And one of the things we talked about is how can we feed 9 billion people? And of course they said, well, we'll have to raise 300 bushel per acre corn, 100 bushel per acre soybean and all that. Is that really a smart way of solving a lot of these problems?
Production-wise, obviously corn and soybeans and wheat, the crops that you can grow a lot of and store very easily, that is probably the route that we'll continue to go. Nutrition-wise, health status-wise of the world's population, could we turn a 600-acre cornfield in central Illinois into 600 acres of carrots? Probably could.
Right.
But there's a lot of other factors that are going to play into that probably not happening.
So we're really blue skying it.
Exactly.
Here, but it's good every now and then to sit back and think, is this really the smartest use of these valuable resources we have? And can we think of a better way of doing things?
Exactly.
Not just the way we have it.
Yep.
Well,
exactly.
Chris, my mind is blown, and and I'm sure a lot of folks out there are yelling at their TV right now. But
Probably.
It's just blue skying.
Yep,
So
exactly.
Thank you, Chris. This is interesting.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Killo with your Inside Extension. Do you have an interest in gardening? Want to learn more about gardening, fruit trees, and how to manage insect pests? If you answered yes to these questions and you have time to volunteer in the community and share your knowledge with others, then you may be interested in becoming a master gardener. Training for new master gardeners will begin soon, so for more information, visit our website or call the Coles County Extension Office at 217-345-7034. Learn how to feel more confident as a parent and/or child care provider. Sherry Burcham, Family Life Educator for the University of Illinois Extension, will be offering Your Young Child Parenting 101 beginning October 21st and meeting weekly until November 4th from 6 until 8:30 p.m. at the Lifespan Center in Charleston. Participants will learn strategies for handling many different issues. This is a community learning class through Lakeland College, and pre-registration is required by calling 234-5434 or online at Lakeland College. For more information about the class, call the Extension office at 543-3755. 4-H Day at the Edward Jones Dome will be Sunday, November 3rd. The game will begin at noon as the St. Louis Rams take on the Tennessee Titans. Illinois and Missouri 4-H members, families, and volunteers are all invited to attend. For more information on getting tickets, visit our website. Tickets are going fast, so order yours now. As always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and visit our website to stay up to date on our programming. From U of I Extension serving Coles, Cumberland, Moultrie, Douglas, and Shelby counties, this has been Jessica Killow with your Inside Extension.
Well, that's it for this week. One way or the other, next week we'll hear how our crop guys are doing. And maybe, just maybe, I'll pin someone down on their yield averages. But until then, work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. The Four Rivers Ag Report is underwritten in part by
The Department of Geology-Geography is a proud sponsor of the Four Rivers Ag Report and provides integrative learning opportunities for students and the community to explore the physical and cultural world near and far.